The rain hit Vincent Marsh's restaurant windows like static on a dead channel. Inside, crystal glasses caught gold light. Outside, in the alley, Ray Coleman stood soaked to the bone, an apron balled up in his fist, thrown at him seconds ago. "Get out of my restaurant!" Vincent's voice had cut through the dining room like a blade. Every fork stopped moving. Every head turned. Ray didn't argue. He just stood there, rain running down a face that hadn't slept properly in 3 weeks. In his pocket was a phone with 11 missed calls from Mercy General Hospital. His daughter Lily was in a room on the 3rd floor, hooked to a machine that beeped louder than his own heartbeat. If you think dignity is worth more than a paycheck, hit subscribe right now, because what happens next is going to make you furious, then make you cry. 6 months earlier, Ray Coleman had been the man who kept Marsh's table running. Not on paper. Never on paper. Vincent made sure of that. Ray trained the line cooks, fixed the walk-in freezer at 2 a.m. With his own hands, covered shifts nobody else wanted. What nobody in that dining room knew, what Vincent had buried under a decade of silence, was that Ray Coleman used to own half of this restaurant. 10 years ago, 2 young cooks with nothing but a lease and a dream signed a partnership on a napkin that became a contract. Vincent had the charm. Ray had the money, his late wife's inheritance, every cent of it. Then Ray's wife got sick. Ray stepped back to care for her, trusted Vincent to hold his share steady. When she passed, Ray came back broken, and Vincent handed him a stack of papers to sign. Told him it was just updated tax filing. Grief makes a man sign things he shouldn't. Now Ray bussed tables in the restaurant he built, for a man who called him replaceable. At table 9, an older man in a gray coat had been watching all of it. He hadn't ordered dessert. He hadn't touched his coffee in 20 minutes. His name was Elliot Whitfield, and he wasn't here for the food. He was here because 3 days ago, a dusty folder had surfaced in his law office, an original partnership agreement, unsigned amendments. A forged signature dated the week Ray buried his wife. Whitfield had been quietly building a case for a month. Tonight, he'd come to see the man at the center of it with his own eyes. The final humiliation came fast. A to-go container, half a plate of leftover chicken Ray had planned to bring home because his refrigerator held nothing but expired milk and a child's untouched lunch. Vincent saw him wrap it. "Stealing from me now?" Vincent said it loud, made sure the whole room heard, made sure the 2 waitresses near the pass saw a grown man get called a thief over dinner scraps, meant for a sick little girl. Ray set the container down slow. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He untied his apron, folded it once, and placed it on the counter like a man closing a door quietly instead of slamming it. "You have no idea what you just threw away," Ray said. Not loud, not a threat, just true. Vincent laughed. He had no idea those 7 words were the last calm sentence he'd get to hear before his entire world came apart. Because the next morning, an envelope would arrive at Marsh's table with a law firm's seal on it, and everything Vincent Marsh thought he owned was about to have someone else's name on it too. The envelope arrived at 9:04 a.m., delivered by a courier who refused to leave until it was signed for. Vincent tore it open at the host stand, coffee still in hand. Inside was a cease and desist, a copy of the original 2016 partnership agreement, and a forensic handwriting analysis with Ray's real signature next to the forged one from a decade ago. The forgery wasn't even close. Vincent had gotten lazy. 10 years of nobody looking. The forged signature wasn't just suspected, it was already proven, time-stamped and sitting in a judge's inbox. Vincent's hands started shaking. He called his lawyer. His lawyer didn't call back for 6 hours, because Elliot Whitfield had already reached him first. Twist number 5. Whitfield represented 3 other investors who'd quietly bought up Marsh's supplier contracts and lease debt over the past 2 years, without Vincent ever noticing whose money it actually was. By Thursday, Vincent's accounts were frozen pending the ownership dispute. His black card declined at his own bar. His host's stand phone rang non-stop with vendors asking why their invoices bounced. He drove to Ray's apartment that night, the same night Lily was finally stable enough to come home from Mercy General. Vincent stood in the hallway, tie loose, voice smaller than Ray had ever heard it. "We can fix this. Quietly, just tell them it was a misunderstanding." Ray studied him for a long moment. Behind him, Lily was asleep on a second-hand couch, an oxygen monitor clipped gently to her finger. "You had 10 years to say sorry," Ray said. "You chose today." Ray didn't want the restaurant. He'd already signed his restored 50% stake over to a trust, one that would fund pediatric care for families who couldn't afford it, the same care that had nearly bankrupted him for Lily. Vincent's forged signature hadn't just failed to erase Ray. It had built something Vincent could never touch or take credit for. The final twist came at the hearing, 3 weeks later. Whitfield stood, calm as ever, and revealed the seventh truth. The investors who'd bought Marsh's debt weren't strangers. They were former employees Vincent had fired over the years for not fitting the brand, people he'd humiliated in front of customers just like he had Ray. They hadn't organized this out of revenge. They'd organized it because Ray had quietly helped every single one of them find new jobs after Vincent let them go, never asking for anything back. Vincent Marsh didn't go to prison. He didn't need to. The judge ordered restitution, transferred majority ownership to the newly formed trust, and Vincent walked out of that courthouse owning 11% of a restaurant he used to call his own kingdom. 6 months later, Marsh's table had a new name: the Second Plate. Free meals every Sunday for hospital families. Ray stood at the pass most nights, not because he had to, but because he wanted to teach the next line cook the way someone should have taught him kindness back when it mattered. Lily sat on a stool near the kitchen doing homework, healthy, laughing at something on her tablet. Vincent showed up once, stood outside in the rain looking through the same window Ray once stood behind. Ray saw him, sent a to-go container out anyway. No note. No words needed. Some people rebuild empires with revenge. Ray rebuilt his with the one thing Vincent never understood the value of. So tell us, if someone stole 10 years of your life and your name, would you burn it all down? Or build something better than they ever could? Drop your answer below.